During the Second Age, 20 magical rings were forged by Sauron to seduce the rulers of Middle-earth. Disguised as a benevolent entity called Anatar, Sauron taught the elven smiths of Eregion the skill of ring crafting. The elven smiths forged 19 rings, 3 rings for the elven kings, 7 rings for the dwarf lords, and 9 rings for mortal men. But all of them, save the elves, were deceived, as Sauron secretly forged the one ring at the fires of Mount Doom, seeking to bring all the rings and their wearers under his sway. The 19 lesser rings were linked to the power of the One, which Sauron had imbued with all his cruelty, malice, and power, and the wearers of the lesser rings were slowly corrupted by the influence of the One. Then an alliance of elves and humans resisted Sauron's ring and fought against the forces of Mordor. They won the Battle of Dagorlad, when Isildur cut the ring from Sauron's hand upon the slopes of Orodruin, and the ring fell to the son of the king of Gondor. But just as he was about to destroy the ring in the fires of Mount Doom, his mind was corrupted by the power of the ring, and he kept it for himself. Later, he was killed at the Battle of the Gladden Fields, and the ring was lost at the bottom of the great river Anduin, where it lay for thousands of years. One day, the creature Gollum discovered it and brought it to his lair deep inside the Misty Mountains, where it tortured him and poisoned his mind. Then he lost it to the hobbit Bilbo Baggins. After many years, the wizard Gandalf determined that this ring was the One Ring, and an effort was devised to destroy the ring in the fires of Mount Doom. We begin the story in the elven city of Rivendell, with the Fellowship of the Ring preparing to depart on its mission to save Middle-earth from the evils of Sauron and his armies of Nazgul, orcs, beasts, and evil men.
Personal log, Stardate 2125.4. I've been ordered to Starbase 234, on the border of Klingon, Romulan, and Dominion space, to take command of a starship whose identity remains classified. My orders are to assess the situation and explore the uncharted sectors around the base, at the same time denying the opposing factions a foothold in the region.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the House meets this Saturday to respond to a situation of great gravity. We are here because for the first time for many years, British sovereign territory has been invaded by a foreign power. After several days of rising tension in our relations with Argentina, that country's armed forces attacked the Falkland Islands yesterday and established military control of the islands. Mr. Speaker, yesterday was a day of rumour and counter-rumour. Throughout the day, we had no communication from the government of the Falklands. Indeed, the last message we received was at 21:55 hours on Thursday night, the 1st of April.
In the spring of 1982, the nations of Great Britain and Argentina went to war in the South Atlantic over the control of a small island group known as the Falkland Islands, Islas Malvinas. The ownership of the islands had been in dispute since 1833, when an English naval squadron expelled a small Argentinian force and occupied the islands. On April 2, 1982, the dispute between the two nations came to open conflict as Argentinian air, naval, and ground forces descended on the islands and forced the British governor Rex Hunt to surrender the islands to the Argentinian government. The Argentinians, led by General Leopoldo Galtieri, reasoned that the British government would not be willing to contest their actions, as the islands were almost 8,000 miles from London. But they underestimated the resolve of the Prime Minister, her cabinet, and Parliament. The British, led by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, quickly responded by assembling an invasion task force composed of 2 aircraft carriers, various escort vessels, and support ships. It is May 1, 1982, and you are in command of the British forces, and have been charged to retake the islands for the Crown. God save the Queen! Where There Is Discord, War in the South Atlantic is a solitaire board game that recreates the battle for the Falkland Islands that occurred during May 1982. The player takes on the role of the commander of the British task force, and you have been charged with reclaiming the Falkland Islands for the Crown. The game system will control the Argentinian land, air, and sea forces, and they will attempt to deny your efforts and maintain their control of the islands. During each day of the campaign, the event deck and the intelligence briefing booklet will challenge the player with unique political and military situations that they must address. These choices will often impact the international or domestic opinion levels. In some games, the player may find that they have been militarily successful, but have lost the game when domestic opinion for the conflict falters. The game includes high-quality components that feature a massive game board, large chits, a full-color rulebook, intelligence briefing book, and player aid charts. Profiles of the aircraft, ships, and ground forces that took part in the battle are provided in the rulebook and briefing booklet. The game is in its 3rd printing, and was designed by Daniel Hodges and produced by Fifth Column Games.
Long ago, the empire became riddled with strife and corruption. One day, a new emperor was crowned, and he desired to improve the lives of his subjects. He decided it would be wise to partition his empire into 4 prefectures and to appoint 4 overseers to manage them. One of these 4 would be given the title of chief overseer. This man would report directly to the emperor himself. The chief overseer that was selected was named Wu Feng. At first, the system seemed to work well, and peace and prosperity spread across the 4 prefectures. But Wu Feng's ambition would not allow him to remain a mere magistrate. So he rebelled against the emperor and attempted to seize the throne for himself. This rebellion became known as the Dark Times, and many men died during the ensuing struggle which followed. Eventually, the rebellion was defeated and Wu Feng was captured. For his treachery, Wu Feng was sentenced to the death by 1,000 cuts, and his remains were unceremoniously cremated and placed within a funerary urn and secretly buried in a tiny village in the heart of the Middle Kingdom. However, the day before his execution was to be carried out, Wu Feng placed a curse upon the empire, and he vowed to one day return and to exact his revenge upon the living. Time slowly passed, and the treachery of Wu Feng was eventually forgotten by men. However, Wu Feng, now the Lord of the 9 Hells, has forgotten nothing. Ever since his demise, his spirit has sought the location of the receptacle containing his earthly remains. If he can retrieve it, he will manifest himself on the earth and take his revenge upon the living. Fortunately, not all men have forgotten Wu Feng's promise. A dedicated remnant of Taoist priests have kept careful watch over the village and have diligently guarded the border between the land of the living and the abode of the dead, ever watchful that Wu Feng might attempt to fulfill his promise to return and avenge his spirit upon the world.